All right, everybody. Welcome to Dave's Man Cave. I'm going to talk a little bit about, it's viewer hate mail. We're responding to that. So I made the video yesterday. And, of course, people take it out of context because they don't get context, they don't get nuance, they don't actually listen to what I say. Everybody's divided into a camp. They're a 600 guy or they're a 1000 guy. They're Glock or they're SIG. They're Democrat or Republican. They're Ford or they're Chevy. And so any perceived slight towards whatever brand name they've aligned themselves and their ego with, they immediately, of course, take personally. If you're criticizing Ford, you're criticizing them. If you're criticizing a 600, you're criticizing them. You get the picture. So, I was out doing vlogging and just going down the road, goofing around and in a straight line and stuff because I was just going out to meet my friend for lunch. We weren't even, going twisties or doing anything. And I just see this VW come up on me really quick. And I'm like, So I kind of give it some gas and I'm like, he's still pulling up on me. So I downshift real quick and take off as he passes me. And it took me a couple seconds out of 1000 to reel him in. I'm like, what the shit? So I was commenting, because I do goof on some 600 riders, and we'll get into this, that it is, there's a special breed of 600 rider. It's not about the bike. I actually like 600s. I love the super sport class. I think it's the one that makes the most sense for the average person. And I've had many of them, as has my wife. And, but there are especially in the Atlanta area, there are so many street squids on 600s. And you know the type. So first let me set the premise here by saying I have nothing against 600s. They are track weapons. If you watch my vlogs of me up in the mountains on my ZX-10R, I have said numerous times that while it is crazy fun, it is completely unnecessary. The power, the speed the thing generates, it's completely stupid. It's kind of like where MotoGP bikes were 20 years ago, and that's kind of crazy when you think about it. And I've made the comment many times that up in the mountains in the twisties, it's not any faster. It might even be faster on the 600 or an R9 or something like that, Street Triple RS. And that's because the power is more matched to the environment and it's not trying to kill you outright like a leader bike is. And so sometimes less is more. Huge fan of that. And I've even said I kind of wish the ZX6R had a quick shifter, an auto blip, and a couple extra features. I would have gone with that this time, even though I've already had a couple of them. I would have gone with that again this time, or a Gixxer 750 for that matter, if it had a quick shift, auto blip, proper electronics, ABS, LED lighting, a TFT dash, if it had, modern amenities. But it's a 15-year-old bike that they're still selling, a 2011 model at 2025 prices. I'm not spending money on that. Already done that twice. There's no difference between the 750s I had way back in the day and what they're selling today. They just changed the color. So I'm very fond of 600s. I think that they make the most sense. And so when I goof on 600 riders, I'm not goofing on the bike, and I'm not goofing on all 600 riders. If you're a track rider or riding up in the mountains, frankly, you got the better tool for the job than a leader bike. Leader bike is pointless up there. I got it because I already had 600s, and the R9 wasn't out yet. The new CBR 600RR, Europe got it. We didn't, so I'm not paying new money for a 2017 model. And I wanted the balance-free forks and the Brembos and the auto blip and all the cool tech. The ZX6R doesn't have all that stuff. So anyway, so when I goof on 600 riders, I am very specifically goofing on the the highway heroes. The guys with the chicken strips, they're not even strips. They're like this wide. They got the belt showing in the middle of the tire. It's never seen a turn. They spend more time posing at Starbucks and stuff for Instagram shots than they spend riding. They've never done a track day. They rarely go to the mountains. If they do, they're usually in a ditch. They're wearing the $1,100 Pista helmet with their flip-flops and board shorts. That is the person I'm talking about. Those are the people that strut around claiming that their 600 does 175 miles an hour, which is faster than Isle of Man race super sports and Moto America fully built, race bikes. But they claim they're, 20-year-old R6 with a power commander and a slip-on, is faster than those bikes, right? That is the person I talk about. That is the person I goof on. And that's the person I referenced in the video. But you always got people that don't get the joke, don't get the nuance, maybe haven't watched the other videos. All right, fair enough. They don't get the backstory. And then you got someone who is just, sure, he's a nice guy, but the people that, now there's no difference between a 600 and a 1000. The 600 stays right with the 1000. It holds its own. And it's not until 145 to 155 miles an hour that the 1000 pulls away. And this is someone, I guess, who doesn't know a lot about bikes. He's just looking at, well, you look at the top speed of one and the top speed of the other, and it's only after that, 600 hits its top speed of around 155 that the 1000, can go faster. Yeah, except the difference is by the time the 600 hits the 155, the other bike's already doing a buck 90. Like, it will get there faster. I've got dyno charts pulled up here. And this bike is, I've had a 600. I had several of them. I grabbed the strongest one that I had. Although I guess technically, you know what? Just for the shits and giggles, let's go over here to Triumph and let's pull up the Daytona 675. All right, so that one's right around the same as the ZX6R. Okay, well, still, you got a good example of a ZX6R. You've got a Daytona 675. You got a GSX-R 750. And you can say, yeah, well, the new ones are making a little more power. Yeah, well, my ZX10's making about 10 horsepower more than the R1 I had is making. So it's all going to be relative. For illustrative purposes here, it doesn't change it. The 600 today might make a little bit more power, but so do S1000RRs and Panigale V4Ss. And, my new ZX10R makes more power too. So the gap is still roughly the same. So to sit there and say that a 600 is just as fast as a 1000, it's only after 150 that you see a difference, completely misses the point. When you're down here at 6,000 RPMs, you look at the horsepower difference here, and you got, the 600 and the blue is the Kawasaki. It's barely making 40 horsepower. The Daytona makes a little more, the 750 makes a little more, and then you're still 13 horsepower, or anywhere from 28 to 15 horsepower more. You get up to 8,000 RPMs. You're not even in the meat of the mid-range of the power yet. And you're seeing everything from 45 horsepower up to 48. So, I'm sorry, that's the torque. You're looking at 54 horsepower up to 75. So that's the difference again between the ZX6R and the 750, and then the Daytona is going to split the difference kind of in the middle. You're already up here now. You're 35 horsepower up over the 750. You're now 101 horsepower up over the 600, the ZX6R. You get up here, and you're at 10,000 RPMs. You're at 143 horsepower versus 102, all the way down to 75. You're looking at double the horsepower between the 600 and with the Daytona, even though it's more and the 750 is more, you're still looking at a 41 to 50 horsepower advantage. Get up to 12. Okay, the 600s are really starting to come on strong as far as what 600s make and stuff. You're looking at 168 versus 123. Okay, you're still looking at a 44 horsepower difference between the 750. At 10,000 or 12,000 RPMs, that ZX6R is barely cracking 100. You're looking at almost 70 horsepower difference. You get up here, it's just the same. You look at the torque. Look at the torque between a 600. A torque is the actual force of the engine, and the horsepower is kind of a calculation based on RPM and torque, and it's how many times how much the torque is applied. There's not an actual measurement of horsepower. Horsepower is a calculated value. Torque is the actual output of the motor as far as like an actual force. Where the 1000, in this case the R1 starts, way down here at 3,000 RPMs, is over 40 foot-pounds. The ZX6R barely ever makes more than that where this thing starts. Most of the torque is massively different out here, and that goes for the 750 and everything, and I'm putting the 750s in there just to say, hey, okay, the super sport class is maybe more than just a 636. 600s aren't making as much as that. And the 1000 just spanks it everywhere. To sit there and say that this bike, you've only got a 30-pound weight difference, fully fueled, assuming the same weight rider, because we're going to focus on the bikes, not on the rider and stuff like that. When you're looking at the bike and its horsepower to weight ratio, and they're all going to have roughly the same level of grip. So what gets you down the quarter mile or 0 to 60 and all that stuff? Yeah, off the line, a 600 is good because it's easy to launch. It doesn't want to flick you off like a leader bike or a Busa or ZX14 does. So yeah, 600 is easier to launch. But once you're rolling, I mean, at 60 miles an hour, let's go to drum and let's go to speed. At 60 miles an hour, they're all making around roughly the same power. Well, if this is a good analogy because of the horsepower difference, or because of the gearing changes. Yeah, it's probably not the best way to do it because it's not actually gonna show the differences in gearing. Because some of the bikes might have been dynoed in 4th gear, some might have been in 5th gear, and they've got internal gear ratios as well as different external gear ratios, which is going to make that largely irrelevant. But when you look at the horsepower and weight difference, yeah, there's a 30-pound weight difference, and the rule of thumb they say is like every 7 pounds of weight reduction is equal to 1 horsepower. So, okay, that's a 5 horsepower. We're going to round up. That's a 5 horsepower. You can maybe, when it comes to acceleration and horsepower rate ratio, you might knock 5 horsepower off that. It's still not even close. A 1000 is always going to accelerate harder than a 600. A 600 is not going to keep pace with this animal up until 150, 155 when the 600 runs out of steam, and then the 1000 pulls away. That is not how this works. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of magazine articles over the years, of videos, reviews, racing, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, on track, where if you're on a small track like Jennings or Talladega GP that I've been on a bunch of times, well, you can say, okay, yeah, the 600 is probably going to be just about as fast. It's going to come down to the rider, because the 1000, you're going to put it in 2nd or 3rd gear and kind of leave it there because it's a small track and you just don't have anywhere to use that power. But you go to COTA, you're going to see a big difference down the straights. And it's not because, they were neck and neck, and then the 600 kind of topped out at 145, 150, 155, whatever it's geared for, and then the 1000 pulled away. That 1000 is going to run away from you like a scalded ape. Off the line, yeah, because the 1000 is just so difficult to launch, probably not much difference. Once you're at 70, 80 miles an hour and you're up in your power, and this stuff starts coming into play where you've just got, let's just get rid of the damn 750 for a second, in the Daytona, and compare 600 to 1000. At no point, I mean, look at the torque difference. To sit there and say that these are the same and they're going to pull just as well is until a certain mile per hour. Unless you're talking like 40, maybe 60, they're going to be real close. After that, it is sayonara. It is goodbye 1000. That thing is going to start climbing in the revs. The 600 is topped out. Max power is going to be where the 1000 was back here at like 7,500 or something. It's so not even close. It's just like, just stop. A lot of us have ridden both. When you're on the track or you're in the mountains, especially, at least on the tracks there are straightaways, and so that may still favor the 1000. But a good pilot on both bikes is probably not going to be a crazy difference in lap times. And up in the mountains, when you're really in the twisties and stuff, and you got blind turns, I'd rather have the 600. It's going to come down to the rider. The 1000, if the 1000's faster, it's up there, it's because the rider's better. It's not because of the extra horsepower. Totally get that. Agree with that. Been saying it for years. But when you're just going in a straight line and you pin it, 600s are quick. They're not fast. That's the reality here. 1000s are fast. They will rip your face off. The 600 makes no power. You got to be out to like 12,000 RPMs before you're cracking 100. And then you got this little, 4,000 RPM range to play in. And even at its peak, it's never making anywhere near. You're still 50, 60 horsepower down on where the 1000 is. And when the bikes are so close in weight, there's only a 25, 30 pound weight difference between them. That little bit of weight difference is nice in the turns. It might make it flick. You might be able to brake a little later because you got less inertia and less mass to slow down. There are advantages to a 600 in maneuverability and flickability and things like that. But when it comes to going fast in a straight line, there is no comparison. You're comparing, I don't know, an older V6 Mustang versus a new Dark Horse that's making double the horsepower. There is no comparison in the quarter mile. There is no comparison in a roll-on race. Stock for stock or mod for mod. One car, they're both weigh roughly around the same. Maybe the new one weighs a little bit more, but when it's making twice the torque and twice the horsepower, it's game over, dude. That's just how it works. So I don't make fun of 600s. They're excellent bikes for their intended purpose, and they absolutely have advantages over my 1000. Up in the mountains is one of them. I can't put that power down. I put the damn thing in road or rain mode just to keep it tame. It's still making more power than a 600, but it makes it so much easier to manage and less distracting, and I'm less likely to kill myself on the damn thing. It'd be much nicer to have a 600, a 750 if it had proper electronics and stuff, or like a Street Triple R RS 765. Those are much better mountain twisty turny road bikes. They're definitely going to be as quick and right there on your ass with a 1000. You're not pulling away from them until the road really opens up. But that's what we were talking about. We're talking about the highway heroes. If you're a track rider or you're an ex-racer that hung up their leathers, but you still got a 600 and you go play up in the mountains, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the street squids. I'm talking about especially the American street squids, the folks that don't wear their gear. Their tires have never seen a turn. They got belt showing in the middle of the tire, but they still got the nubbins on the side of the tires. And they just talk about how fast they are because they rip up and down the highway, and that's all they do. And they think it makes them fast, and they don't understand how speedo error works. We haven't even gotten that whole thing of what you see on your dash is not what you get. Even my 2021 R1, all the modern electronics and IMU and wheel speed sensors for really complex, rear lift, wheel mitigate, all those systems have to be accurate and precise for those things to work right. All the electronics, it was still 6% high from the factory. So 182 on the dash is only like 169 or something like that. And 600s, especially older bikes, notoriously for being off 8% on average. And if you go and do gearing swaps and gear down your 750 like I did, because you're not going to do 190 on a 750. It doesn't have the horsepower to push through the wind at that speed. So why not gear it down to like 170s, 172, 174? You will perhaps hit that speed, but you got much more acceleration in the mid-range. But now your speedo's off like 18%. You got to go get a speedo healer, find out how much it's off by GPS or a dyno, and then program it to get your speedo in line. Otherwise, you think, oh, look, I'm doing 190. And it's like, no, you're 20% high. You're not doing anywhere near that. And so many guys don't know that, but they make their egos tied up in telling how fast their 600 is. And, oh, I didn't need a 600. Why didn't you go with the 600? Well, the reality is they were afraid of it, or they couldn't afford it, or couldn't afford the insurance. So they got the 600. Nothing wrong with that. It's like, just own it. You don't have to make excuses for owning a 600. They're fantastic bikes. But to sit there and say, well, I got the 600. There was no point, It's just it's pretty much just as fast. I can go 175 miles an hour, and I can hang with boosters and stuff. And you've heard all this shit, and you're like, dude, just stop. When you do that, you call attention to the fact that you either don't know what you're talking about, or you're a liar and a poser. Neither of which is a good look. So enjoy what you have. If you get a 400, great, go ride the shit off of it. Some of the most fun up in the mountains I've had has been on a 63 horsepower at the wheel with a single disc up front, not even a radial caliper, on a damn Street Cup 900, making, well, shit, it's in here somewhere, right? We got Triumph. Let's go in and, do I have my Street Cup in here? 2017 Street Cup. Let's see, Ectex cam, full dyno tune. Yeah, just for illustrative purposes, let's get rid of this 600. One of the most fun bikes that put a giggle on my face every time. Yeah, leader bikes, and especially my ZX10, which makes more than what you see here by like 10 horsepower, is crazy fun in some ways, but on a day-to-day basis to just rip through twisty mountain roads where the big guys couldn't put down the power, I had more fun and more smiles per mile on this green line bike than I do on my leader bikes. You can say, well, why don't you have one of those? Well, because I like electronics and quick shifting, and I do like to do track days occasionally and go up to Road Atlanta and, going down the back straight at a buck 10, well, everybody's whizzing by you by 60 miles an hour. It's not a lot of fun. It's just not made for that kind of stuff. But up playing in the twisties on skinny tires in a single disc up front and just a little bit of, decent amount of torque to just kind of power out of turns, but running out of revs right there, falls on its face. You don't need a lot of power to be happy and have fun. It's good in other areas, don't get me wrong. That's why I got one. But I'm not dogging people for having slower bikes. I'm not dogging people for having 600s instead of leader bikes. Buy whatever the shit you want. You want a Royal Enfield? Go buy one. Enjoy it. I think they're pretty cool. But it's the goobers that sit there and make up a bunch of crap about, the 600's just as fast. No, it's not. It never will be. Oh, it'll keep pace with a 1,000 to 155 miles an hour and hits the top speed, and that's only then that the 1,000 pulls past. Shut up. It just doesn't work that way. You go look at the trap times on a quarter mile, and you go look at trap times at a half mile on a 600 versus 1,000, and they are different. That bike does not, the 600 does not accelerate the way a 1,000 does. So anyway, there you have it. Hopefully there's some clarifications there and you can understand how some of this shit works. These are all from my bikes that I've owned over the years. There's like 50 of the damn things in here. Dyno tuned them all, tracked a lot of them. I'm not Marquez by any means, but I'm a good rider. I'm a quick rider. I have done about 20 track days and spent a lot of time doing this stuff over 30 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars doing it. I know a little bit about it. So for the folks thinking I'm just some dumb American that doesn't get it, you're not listening to the argument, and you're just hearing 600, not as fast as you think you are, and you're just reacting. You didn't listen to what I said. You didn't listen to what I said about when I say things like, that typical street squid that, it does 175 miles. Those are all cues that I'm talking about a very specific person in the community. If that's not you, if you don't fit that mold, you just happen to own a 600, I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about your situation. I'm talking about very specific things that I goof on because they say silly, untrue things. There you have it. Have a nice day, folks. So here's a quick addendum to that. I forgot to mention, part of the reason why I goof on the 600 street squids is because so many of them talk about and strut around with the high speed stuff that their bikes just don't do, but also, all the constant claims of, I can take any car, I'll take it to Gapplebee's, I'll beat this, I'll beat that, my 600 outrun anything, I've never lost a race. Shut up. A 600 today, when you look at lap times, they've come down a little bit because they got better suspension, they got better brakes, better tire technology today, rider aids, quick shifters. So they've improved somewhat in that time, but they're not, when it comes to like horsepower, top speed, quarter mile times, acceleration, hasn't changed much. If you've got a properly set up 600 today, a newer one, you should make about 120 at the wheel for like a 636 or a late model R6 with a, properly tuned and stuff. And you can do additional mods and maybe get a couple more, but basically some are going to make a couple horsepower more, some are going to make a couple horsepower less. But overall, 120 horsepower at the wheel is what you should expect out of a 600 on average. That's only 5 or 10 horsepower more than they were making 20 years ago. They're not really any faster. They're more capable in the turns. They can turn a better lap time. They're safer with rider aids. But when you talk about speed, I'm talking about lap times, I'm talking about speed, they're not really much faster. They're basically around the same. Marginally better, very marginal. In that time, cars have doubled and tripled and quadrupled in horsepower. When you look at a car, what it could put down, and you look at the performance metrics from 20 years ago, from like 2003, 4, 5, 6, those eras, what was like a fast car making? 400-ish, maybe a little over 400 horsepower. But tire technology wasn't there. If it wasn't mid-engine or rear engine, it wasn't getting as much grip. And so the performance wasn't as good as what's out today. You look at cars now, especially going to mid-engine design and stuff like that, all-wheel drive. You got cars making just sick horsepower. You got freaking that souped-up VW. The Z06 will do the same quarter mile time, bone stock, as a 600. Might even beat it, because the rider better be really on their game on a prep surface and a racetrack to get that 11.7 or 11.4 or whatever, or I guess 10.7 or 10.4. Meanwhile, a Z06 with fresh tires, put it in launch control and point it in the right direction. It'll just do it. Cars are so much faster and more capable in that amount of time, and bikes have not really changed much. 600s have it. When it comes to just straight line performance, their increases, they might be 5% faster than they were. Cars are way faster. You got cars now, you look at E-Rays and Z06s that are pulling 0 to 60 in 2.2, 2.3, 2.5. Your 600 isn't doing that. Theoretically, maybe they could do it in 2.7. Yeah, if you're Chris Moore, if you're a Ricky Gadsden. The average street squid, the average track rider is probably not doing 0 to 60 that fast. And certainly they're not, most people are not doing a quarter mile down in the mid-10s or low 10s. And now you got cars doing them in bone stock in the 9s. So the idea that your 600 is just, oh yeah, I can beat anything. Oh, it's so much faster than cars. I take you to Gapplebee's all the time. Well, guess what? I got a base model C8. I have taken every 600 that has ever wanted to race me, I've taken them to Gapplebee's. Off the line, the launch control is sick. They're sitting there fighting wheelies and getting a shitty launch, and I'm just gone. And they'll claw back a little bit of it. Some will even gap me a little bit around 100 miles an hour. By 130, I'm reeling them in. By 140, 150, I've caught them. And after that, it's game over. They're topping out. I got another 40 miles an hour to go. So those are the people I'm goofing on. Not 600s, not competent riders, not racers, not track day guys, not guys who spend a lot of time in the mountains shredding it on their 600 and doing it well. I'm talking about the goobers. I'm talking about the highway heroes that just say, my bike does this and this and this and it. And it just doesn't. And they don't, because they don't have the skills to do it. So just wanted to add that clarification.